By the end of my second week at Pine Hollow, I was the only girl in my cabin who could say her full name without hesitating. I want to tell you, that sounds like an exaggeration. It isn't. I was 17 when my aunt sent me there, 2 weeks in the Wisconsin Northwoods, Bible study beside a lake so clear you could count pebbles 10 feet down, no phones allowed. Strict rules, but not scary ones. Prayers before meals, hymns around the fire, s'mores that tasted exactly like they should. For the first few days, I thought I'd lucked into the most boring horror story in the world. The head pastor, a soft-spoken man everyone called Brother Elias, gave a talk every night after dinner. At first, it was normal youth group material: forgiveness, purpose, community. By the end of week 1, it had changed shape. He talked about the end times like a scheduled event, and about how some of us had been chosen to carry the camp's work forward after everyone else fell away. I laughed it off. Then Marcy, the girl in the bunk beside mine, showed up one morning with bruises on her wrist, shaped almost like fingers, and couldn't explain where they came from. A few nights later, I woke at 2 a.m. to find half the girls' cabin empty. "Prayer circle," one of the girls mumbled when I asked where everyone had gone. Then she rolled over and went back to sleep. I started noticing who got invited to those circles. Never the confident kids. Never the troublemakers. Always the homesick ones. The lonely ones. The kids who cried easily and had stopped asking questions by day 3. On night 11, I broke curfew. I followed singing down to the old boathouse, condemned, off-limits, structurally unsafe, we'd been told. Through a gap in the boards, I saw candlelight. Counselors and campers stood in a loose circle. 2 of them were leading a boy from the younger cabins toward the center. He wasn't fighting. He wore the same soft, faraway smile everyone in that room wore, like he'd already agreed to something the rest of him hadn't caught up to. I ran. I didn't go back to my cabin. Some animal part of me understood that whatever was happening had already gotten inside the places I thought were safe. I spent the night in the woods, mosquitoes tearing me apart, listening for hymns on the wind and terrified of both hearing them and not. By morning, I understood something simple and somehow worse than anything supernatural. Pine Hollow wasn't haunted. It was practiced. Brother Elias and a rotating circle of staff had learned exactly how lonely kids think. Isolation, sleep deprivation, constant repetition, just enough scripture to make the rest go down easy. Slowly, patiently, they separated kids from their own judgment until believing became easier than doubting. The bruises were discipline. The prayer circles were training. And every summer, 1 or 2 kids who resisted too hard simply stopped appearing in letters home, folded into stories about early departures and family emergencies that nobody thought to question. I walked 11 miles through forest before a truck driver found me at sunrise. I could barely tell him my name. It took 3 weeks and 2 state agencies to shut Pine Hollow down. I still flinch at hymns. And sometimes I wake up in the dark, say my full name out loud, and wait to hear whether it still sounds like mine. 20 kids went into Blackwater Camp with me that summer. Only 16 came out, and for years I let everyone believe a bear did it. It wasn't a bear. It was one of us, and I sat across a campfire from him for 6 nights, laughing at his stories. Blackwater sat on 40 acres of black spruce in northern Maine, 3 hours from the nearest working stoplight. I took the counselor job because it paid better than the diner and promised unplugged wilderness magic. No cell service, no Wi-Fi. Just the lake, the pines, and 6 counselors I'd known for exactly 4 days. Mosquitoes hummed constantly in the humid air, and the trees creaked like old floorboards even when the wind died. The first nights were perfect. Canoes drifted through fog so thick the far shore disappeared. Kids roasted marshmallows and begged for ghost stories. Marcus, one of the senior counselors, was everyone's favorite. He knew card tricks, could mimic bird calls perfectly, and kept making us laugh. Then things started disappearing. A flashlight, a tent stake, a radio. We blamed raccoons. Then we blamed the kids. By Wednesday, nobody blamed anything out loud. That night, every radio clicked at exactly the same time and died. Around the campfire, Marcus told us about the drifter, a maintenance man who vanished beyond the tree line years ago. The camp had changed names afterward, but locals still whispered about him. Nobody laughed after that. Before bed, Marcus volunteered to sleep outside the youngest kid's cabin with a flashlight across his lap. One of the campers asked if he could stay too because Marcus made him feel safe. The next evening, Danny and Priya took 8 kids to watch the sunset from Miller's Ridge. Only the kids came back, crying so hard I could barely understand them. Danny said, "Wait here." One kept repeating. I found the drag marks before Russ called off the search, 2 deep furrows through the pine needles, blood already black against the forest floor. We told the kids it was a bear. I told myself the same thing. By morning, Counselor Lena was gone too. Her sleeping bag was empty, and one sneaker sat outside her cabin door like she'd been pulled straight out. That same afternoon, 8-year-old Tyler wandered 20 feet off the trail to pee and never came back. We were down 4 people already: Danny, Priya, Lena, and Tyler. We started counting heads every 20 minutes. Marcus was the calm one. He organized searches, checked locks, and reminded us to keep the kids together. But the fear was thick now you could smell it, mixing with the pine sap and lake water. On Friday, I found Tyler's glasses beside the canoe dock. That afternoon, I went back to our cabin for a fresh flashlight and found a duffel bag hidden under Marcus's bunk. Inside was Danny's watch, Priya's whistle, Lena's camp map, and a photograph of a cabin burning at night. Marcus walked in while I was holding it. He didn't run. He sat on his bunk and stared at the picture for a long moment. "My sister died in a fire at another camp," he said quietly. "The roads washed out. The counselors lost track of the kids. Nobody knew who was missing until it was too late." He finally looked at me, eyes flat. "They weren't careful here either. Danny and Priya lost count. Lena left cabins unlocked. Tyler slipped away because nobody was watching him. People like that always wait until after children die to take safety seriously." I backed toward the door, heart hammering. He kept talking, voice calm and reasonable. "I heard my sister screaming through a cabin window. I still hear her every night." Then he smiled a small, almost gentle smile. "I fixed the problem before it happened again. When the sheriff's team finally reached us at dawn, Marcus was gone. They searched the woods for 3 days. They never found him. Before I left Blackwater, one deputy showed me old maintenance records. The drifter had been real. He'd vanished from those woods 32 years earlier. The deputy also handed me an old staff photograph. 3 people stood outside a cabin. I recognized one immediately. It was Marcus. The picture had been taken 11 years before I ever worked at Blackwater. There were 9 names on a list I wasn't supposed to see, and mine was one of them, next to a dollar figure I still remember exactly. My parents thought they were sending me to a leadership program. They were sending me somewhere I wasn't expected to come back from. Echo Lake sat at 9,000 feet in the Colorado Rockies, 40 miles from Denver, ringed by peaks sharp enough to look drawn with a ruler. Building character through adversity, the brochure promised. For the first few days, that's all it was. Obstacle courses, cold water swims, counselors with 2 white smiles talking about grit. Then the storm hit. Power went out. The only bridge to the main road disappeared under 6 feet of runoff. We were cut off. The counselors seemed almost relieved. Things changed after that. Hikes got longer, meals got smaller. The medical counselor started giving us mandatory shots before overnight exercises. Nobody said what was in them. 2 kids got sick afterward. Tyler shook so hard his teeth clicked together. Wren threw up behind the mess hall and still tried to joke about it. She carried a little notebook where she rated every sunrise from 1 to 10. She gave Echo Lake's sunrise an 8 because the mountains looked too perfect to be real. I started sleeping badly, which is the only reason I heard the argument through the cabin wall. Two low voices. Policy. Payout. Make it look natural. I told myself I'd misheard. The human brain can explain almost anything if it's scared enough. 2 nights later was the mandatory solo survival exercise. 1 tarp. 1 whistle. Half a mile from anyone else. At dawn, Wren didn't answer her whistle check. They searched for less than an hour. Then one counselor clapped his hands and said, "We should keep our schedule up for morale." I remember staring at him because a girl had just disappeared and he sounded annoyed about being behind. After that, I stopped sleeping in my assigned bunk. 2 other kids had noticed things too. Priya had seen a counselor filling out paperwork with a beneficiary line already completed. Sam had found a satellite phone in a locked supply closet after the camp insisted no outside communication existed. The 3 of us started paying attention. Then I found the list. It was folded inside a supply manifest in the medical tent. 9 names. $9 figures. Wren's name was crossed out. Mine was 3 lines below hers. I never learned who made the list, or whether our parents knew it existed. Maybe they didn't. Maybe someone at the camp had found children whose insurance policies made them profitable. Maybe the whole thing was smaller than my imagination made it. I only know what I saw. We hid in the rocks above the ropes course for 4 days, rationing granola bars and watching flashlights sweep through the trees at night. Nobody called our names. Nobody begged us to come back. When the water finally dropped enough for a rescue crew to cross the ruined bridge, we ran toward them so fast one of them asked if someone was chasing us. Maybe someone was. I never found out what happened to Wren, or how many names had been crossed off that list before ours. I still remember the number beside my name. 3 years later, while looking for my birth certificate, I found my father's insurance papers in a filing cabinet. The number was exactly the same. If you're heading to summer camp anytime soon, maybe don't go alone. Leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next story.